One of the things I learned from reading Carl Jung, I mean, this isn't a statement he made explicitly, but it emerges as a consequence of reviewing a fair bit of his thought. His proposition, in some sense, was that Catholicism was as sane as human beings could get. And it's a very interesting rejoinder to the atheist types, because they think we could be rationalist materialists. But I don't think we can be, because that isn't what we're like. We're all going to become rational in this scientific sense. There aren't that many scientists, and even among scientists, there aren't that many scientists. It's actually really hard to be a scientist. It takes a lot of training. It's a very specific way of thinking. And it isn't obvious how broadly accessible that's ever going to be. And I say that as an admirer of the scientific enterprise. Catholicism is a great drama. It's an inclusive, encompassing ritual and drama, as well as a system of beliefs. And, more power to it as far as I'm concerned on that regard. I don't remember what my fundamental criticism was, unfortunately. There's many podcasts that I've done because I was so ill, and sometimes while doing them, that I don't remember them at all. I meet people that I interviewed for 2 hours and I don't remember meeting them. It's very distressing, but that's life. I would say, and I think the idea that a critique should be differentiated, that's a very good idea and fair enough. And I certainly don't feel like engaging in a blanket condemnation of the Catholic Church. I've been grappling and trying to do this with Bishop Barron too. Part of the reason Barron wanted to talk to me is because the people who are actively engaged in the religious enterprise professionally, and this is Orthodox Jews, Muslims, Orthodox Christians, Roman Catholics, Protestants less so, but some, they're interested in the popularity of my lecture series on Genesis. Because I did that lecture series in 2017. It was really the first public lecture series I gave. We rented a theater in Toronto privately and booked it for 15 weeks, and I offered these lectures, and all the tickets sold out. And most of the people who came were young men. And that's weird, because you imagine going to a bank with this business plan. So I'm going to rent a theater. I want you to loan me some money. I'm going to rent a theater. I'm a professor. I'm going to rent a theater. And I'm going to lecture. The first lecture I'm going to give will be 2 hours on the first sentence of Genesis. And my target market is young men. It's like, they're not going to lend me any money. That's a no starter. But the lectures sold out, and they've been watched, 40 million times or something on YouTube. And so the civil apparatus of many religious organizations are interested in this, because I obviously tapped into something that they're not tapping into. And my criticism, if I remember, was a criticism aimed at addressing the fact that that's not being tapped into. One of the things I talked to Bishop Barron about, and I may not be addressing your friend's concern because I don't know what specific criticism he was concerned about. I suggested to Barron that the reason the Catholic Church is not doing as well as it might, there's many reasons, is that they actually, in the attempt to popularize the faith, especially in the 60s, they ended up not asking enough of people. So we shouldn't ask so much. Like, no, wrong decision.
Meaning expect?
Expect.
Okay, got it.
Make it more accessible.
Got it.
It's like,
got it. Yeah.
One of the things I learned from reading Kierkegaard, Kierkegaard said at one point in a rather comical piece of writing that once everything has become too easy, that there'll be a massive outcry for voluntary difficulty. And I thought, that's smart. Well, he was smart. He was Kierkegaard after all. And the church can offer that. That is what it has to offer. Like, that's the straight and narrow path. This is very, 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 very difficult. But it's the alternative to hell. So there is that. And I think there's true and there's meta-true, and that's meta-true.
That's powerful, because, churches sit behind closed doors, and the board will say, whoever the board may be at a non-denominational church, hey, Pastor, this last time you talked about, pick whatever it is, transgenderism a little bit too much. we're losing our, attendees. You talked about this. Don't spend too much time talking about gay marriage out of the Bible, because we have to be a little bit more diplomatic. Let's not raise the standard too much where people are doing too many Bible studies or too many, events at the house. You're saying, no, double down and raise the standards and keep them high. Expect more from people. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't, and not in a finger-wagging sense. It's more, I've been talking to a lot of Islamic thinkers, and I have a lot of Muslim people have watched my biblical lectures, like a lot. And so I have a following, strangely enough, among the Muslim community and among Orthodox Jews and broadly among religious communities. And, the Christians are often on me to come out and just profess my faith in Jesus Christ as our universal Savior. And whenever I'm, let's say, questioned in that manner, it's always a trap. It's like, join my club. It's like,
yeah,
you just stay in your own club. And I've got lots of people to talk to, But a huge part of, the Muslims say, it's pretty funny. Peterson doesn't realize it, but he's actually a Muslim. And I had an Orthodox Jewish fellow in New York make a comment about his friends watching my videos and seeing them in accordance with the deepest elements of their teachings. And it's a lovely thing to see. It's very surprising to me. It's quite staggering. But, what I'm doing is predicated on the idea that there's way more to people than they let out. And a lot of that's to be found in their darkness. And I'm making that case. I suppose the people who've been most attracted by that case have been young men, and I think that that's because they're so actively discouraged in the expression of their possibility by our culture. Actively discouraged, because they're regarded as, oppressive patriarchs in training or some bloody thing like that, and so caustic and so horrible.
I guess the question I was more asking is, the idea is if we lower the standards, attendance will go up. We've been losing attendance because standards have been very high. Let's lower it a little bit. Let's be more welcoming. It's
more political and more relevant.
Yeah,
it's like religion isn't politics. Religion is the structure that contains politics. It's far deeper. It's like politics, literature, religion. That's sort of the structure. So
politics, literature.
Yeah, politics
religion.
is embedded. Well, you Americans, I said you're all theatrical here. Well, it's because your whole polity is encapsulated in narrative. Everyone knows that. That's the American dream. It's like, what's the American dream? Well, it's hard to put your finger on it, and you guys are exploring that all the time, not least in your popular culture. It's constant exploration of what constitutes the American dream. That's the container for the political structure, and it's the dream that unites you. The political structure does as well, but it can't unite you if the dream doesn't unite you. And underneath, so the dream that's in the domain of literature, essentially, in storytelling and dream. And underneath that, the deepest strata of the literary endeavor is the religious endeavor. The Bible is a story. Is it true? Well, depends what you mean by true. And people say, well, that's weaselly. It's like, no, it's not. If you ask a profound question like that, is the Bible true? You can't assume true and then cram the Bible into that. You have to make both sides of the equation open to question. What do you mean by true? Well, you're not answering the question. No, I'm just not answering it the way you want me to. I'm not. This is why people like Richard Dawkins always kick the hell out of religious people when they're debating them. It's because Dawkins comes armed with a conception of the truth, and it's not trivial. It's like the scientific conception of the truth. This is a big club. And before he even begins, the whole structure of the debate is predicated on the fundamental acceptance that that definition of true is valid and complete. And so the religious people just lose because they're up against the might of science. It's like, how are they not going to lose that?